In this video, I'm going to share how to start selling on eBay in 5 simple steps. So let's get into it. Step number 1 is sourcing. Before you can create a listing, you need an item to sell. So where do we find our items to sell on our eBay store? Our favorite places to thrift are generally yard sales or garage sales, whatever you call them in your area. We find that the profit margins are generally higher when we shop at yard sales versus at thrift stores. There's an app called Treasure Map that a lot of people use here to list their yard sales. So we like to get onto that app on Friday night and scope out what the sales will be for Saturday morning. We'll also check Facebook Marketplace. A lot of yard sales are listed there as well. So it will probably depend a lot on your specific area and what people use to list their yard sales. But for us, those are 2 really reliable sources. So Friday night, we'll sit down and map out what yard sales we want to attend. Preparation is definitely key in helping you make sure you maximize your time. And we try and pick out the one yard sale that seems the most promising to go to first, because being to the yard sale on time or a little early is key. You want to make sure you are respectful and not a super early bird, but definitely try and be one of the first people there if you can. That way you'll have first pick of a lot of the items. Also, constantly educating yourself about what are good items to pick up will pay dividends. That way, if you aren't the first one to the yard sale, you can still find great inventory, and you'll probably spot things that other resellers passed up just because they weren't familiar with those brands or those items. Now in the winter, unfortunately, we don't have yard sales here. It gets too cold, so we generally go to thrift stores during the winter. As I mentioned before, profit margins aren't quite as high, so we do have to be a little more selective with what we pick up. We found that opening the thrift store usually yields the best results, but it is going to just depend on your specific thrift stores. Some thrift stores restock and then open, others restock throughout the day, and so it doesn't matter when you go, you just have to be lucky and be there when they're bringing out carts. So just get to know your specific thrift stores in your area, and again, just constantly educating yourself is going to help you be able to recognize more items to pick up. Goodwill outlets, also known as the bins, is another great place to source if you have one nearby. Usually there's lots of digging required at the bins, but you pay per pound, so usually clothing comes out to about $1 a piece, unless it's a heavier item, of course. So you can get some really great profit margins and find some great inventory. Also, don't discount Facebook Marketplace. We will often scan the marketplace and find things to pick up and flip from there. In addition, don't be afraid to tell your friends and family that you're starting an eBay store. A lot of times they are decluttering and throwing things away or donating items. Several times we've had family members or friends give us items that they were going to just throw away or donate, and we were able to sell them for profit on our store. So it worked out great, and we always really appreciate them for letting us have a chance to sell stuff rather than it going in the trash or being donated. Lastly, if you don't have a lot of money to invest in inventory right away, that's totally okay. That's an awesome thing about this business, is the startup cost is very small. Look around your house. You might be surprised what you can find to sell on eBay. I recommend starting with smaller items like video games, popular name brand clothing. I actually recently did a video, 24 small things to sell on eBay, that I will link below, that can hopefully give you some great ideas of things maybe just lying around your house that you can sell on eBay and start your store that way. Step number 2 is photographing. Now, you don't need a fancy setup to photograph your items. You can definitely add to your setup as you build your eBay store, but just getting started, you just need a clean, well-lit area to photograph your items. Sometimes lighting can make the clothing look a different color than it actually is, so just be aware of that and make sure that the photos are representing the true color. And you don't really need a fancy camera to take photos. We still photograph our items just using our cell phone, and it works great. As you build your store, you'll figure out the workflow that works best for you. What we have found that works best for us is to photograph a lot of items all at once. That way we have all of the photos on hand, and then we can start creating listings, and we don't have to stop in the middle of creating each listing to take the photos. So that is definitely my recommendation. Photograph all of the items first, and then go in and create the listings, and then you just simply upload the photos, and it's a pretty efficient way to work. But again, you'll figure out what works best for you. So as you go along, you can experiment with different workflows and find out what you find to be the most effective. When you're taking photos of your items, you want to be sure to include as many photos as possible. You want to point out any flaws or blemishes. So for example, this will be the item that I'm going to use to show you how to create a listing. If I were to photograph this, I would take a picture of the front, of the back. I would open it up and take a picture like this, and then I would take a picture of the back side of this as well to show that there weren't any scratches and whatnot. So the more thorough you can be, the better. For clothing, you want to make sure to include measurements, so make sure to have a measuring tape handy when you're photographing. And for clothing, don't forget to photograph the tags, both the label tag and then the care tag that's usually on the inside toward the bottom somewhere. And one tip that I have found to be super helpful while I am photographing is to use the square mode feature on my camera. Using the square photo setting isn't necessary. You can crop the pictures once you upload them into your listing, but I found that if I use the square mode, then that just eliminates the amount of cropping I have to do and helps me list faster. Step number 3 is creating your listing. Now you have all of your photos taken, so let's create that listing. I'm going to show you how to create a listing on my laptop, but you can also create a listing on your phone. It's super easy as well. Just download the eBay app, and the process is very, very similar. I did a video earlier showing how to create a listing from your phone, so you can check that out if you want. But whether you're doing it on your laptop or phone, it should be very similar. So follow along with me here. Let's jump into my computer and I'll show you how to do this. So you want to go to ebay.com or download the eBay app if you're going to do it from your phone. If you already have a personal account, then you are ready to go. You can just list from that personal account. And if you don't have an account, you can easily set one up. It is free, which is awesome, and it just takes a couple of minutes to do. So the item I want to list today is this Wii Party Nintendo game. So what you can do is type the title of the game in the search bar, hit search. This game is used, so I'm going to go down to condition and mark that used box. That will bring up similar listings to what I have. These are all the ones that are currently listed. And then I like to go down and filter further to sold items to get an idea of how you're wanting to price your items. So I see that this game, this is the exact game that I have. So right here where it says sell one like this, you want to click on that. And what that's going to do is auto-populate a listing for you. And you can essentially use that listing as a template. A lot of the info will already be filled in for you, so you're not creating the listing from scratch. So I am going to go in and check everything here. You click on upload photos. Once you have all of your photos uploaded, you want to check the title, make sure everything looks accurate. It looks good just as is. You always want to make sure to include any major keywords in the title if you can. And then you want to check item specifics. This one is already pretty well filled out. There's nothing that I'm seeing that I really need to add. But you just want to make sure you have these filled out as much as you possibly can. Under condition, you're going to want to mark whatever the condition is. I'm going to mark very good. It's used, but it's in great condition. Under condition description, you can add any information that you would like. And then under description, you want to include as many details as you can. Include if there are any flaws in the product. Make sure to note that in the description. And there's actually a feature right here, use AI description, that you can click on, and it will auto-populate a whole description for you. I found that this works well sometimes, generally for video games and some hard goods it works. It really depends on the item. Sometimes I will use this, sometimes I won't. Just kind of depends. If I use it, I make sure to do a proofread, make sure it makes sense and looks good. In this case, it does look good, so I'm going to go ahead and use that description that it auto-created for me. And now you want to go down to pricing. Now, one tip when you're trying to figure out how to price the item, at the beginning when you are searching for the item and you filter used and then sold, You want to take note of all those items, what they sold for, take note of the shipping costs, and that way you can have an idea kind of where you want to price your item. Also, this area will give you an average of what items sold. If I want to see some of the sold listings, I can click on it and it will show everything that has sold. So it's very handy. So generally I want to be right in that area, kind of in the middle. If you want your item to sell really quickly and you have the profit margin to play with the numbers, you can price it, to be one of the lowest items. Just really comes down to your personal preference. Format, we generally always do buy it now rather than auction. We very rarely will do an auction. So for the most part, I recommend buy it now. So maybe I'm going to price mine $44.95. You decide what you want to price it at. I do recommend ticking allow offers. I generally don't set a minimum offer, but you can decide what you prefer. And then here, I'm just going to leave this. I want my listing to go live, but if you want to schedule it to go live during a certain day or time, you can definitely do that. And then you have the shipping info. Now for smaller items like video games, a lot of times we will offer free shipping, but a lot of the other items we do charge the buyer for the shipping. So you want to click standard shipping. And then starting out, I highly recommend doing calculated shipping. You do have the option to enter flat rate shipping or free shipping. But if you do calculated shipping, it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it, and it helps ensure that you don't lose money on the shipping side until you learn how much things are going to cost to ship. Calculated shipping right here is a great way to do this. So then you just enter the info, and then I love to have a shipping scale handy. This is just a very inexpensive, simple one that works great. So you can weigh your item. It weighs 5 ounces. And then account for the packaging. I'm going to mail this in a padded envelope that's 12 by 8 by 1. So that will give me a good idea of how much it's going to cost. We always allow international shipping. And then you choose your handling time. When you're just starting out, you won't have very many items shipping out. So I recommend doing 1 business day if you can. The faster you can get your items out, the better. It's more incentive for the buyer to choose your listing over someone else's that is going to ship out slower than you. You fill out your item location info, choose whether or not you want to accept returns, and fill this out, and then click done. Now you are almost done. You can choose to exclude certain areas, up to you, personal preference. And then you can choose whether or not you want to promote your listings. We generally do promote our listings. We like to promote it at a 2%. Everybody has their personal thoughts on what they feel is best. So you can experiment with your store and choose what you feel is best. For us personally, we have found that this is kind of the sweet spot. We don't do promoted listings advanced. And then you just want to make sure you have your payment info set up, require immediate pay, and then you click list, and you have just listed your first item. And I did a shipping video diving deeper into shipping that I will link below if you want more info on shipping. I know that part can be a little daunting when you're first starting out, so I explain it in greater detail in that video, so make sure to check that out if you have questions about shipping. Step number 4 is packaging. So you've listed your item, time has passed by, and your item sells. I still remember the first time I heard that cha-ching from our eBay app telling us that an item had sold, and I was so excited. But then seconds later, I remember feeling so terrified because I realized I had to figure out how to package the item and get it shipped out, and I had no idea what I was doing. So understanding the ins and outs of packaging and shipping can seem kind of daunting when you're just starting out, but I promise it's actually pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it, and it's not as daunting as it seems at first. So let me walk you through some of the basics of packaging. We ship the majority of our clothing in poly mailers like this, very inexpensive and easy to store. I'll link below some of our favorite shipping supplies if you want to check it out for some ideas. We also like these padded envelopes, and then most everything else goes in boxes. And one of the nice things is you can get most of your boxes for free. We like to save all of our boxes that come from Amazon. You can also ask friends or family for their boxes if they're gonna just put them in recycle, and just kind of have a stockpile of boxes of different shapes and sizes so that you're ready to go when your items sell. Occasionally, if we need a very specific box and we don't have one, we will buy one from Home Depot or Walmart, somewhere like that. But those instances are pretty few and far between. We do have a business account for eBay, and with that comes a quarterly coupon. So we often buy some smaller boxes from eBay. But if you're just starting out, I just recommend starting to collect the Amazon boxes and other boxes that you find, and you should be pretty set with that. So you definitely don't need to spend a lot on boxes, which is really nice to have that savings. You're also going to need some bubble wrap and packing paper. Those are two things that we try not to skimp on. You don't want your items shifting in the box during transit, and you definitely want to keep in mind that when boxes are shipped, they're generally not handled gently. They're often thrown, things are stacked on them. So just make sure you set yourself up for success by packaging the item really well. And one thing I suggest is after you list your item, start thinking about how you're going to ship it out when it sells. So if you need a specific size of box, start looking for that and having it ready. That way when the item sells, you're not scrambling trying to figure out how to package it. And lastly, you just want a basic scale like this one that I showed. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. I think this was like $15 off Amazon, somewhere around there. And then you want some packaging tape, of course. And that's it. It's a very minimal startup cost, which is one of the coolest things about this business. Now the last step, number 5, is shipping. Once your item is packaged, it's time to ship it out. You definitely want to make sure to print off the label at home because eBay offers some discounts with shipping. If you take your item into the post office and have them print off the label, then you are going to miss out on some of those discounts that eBay offers. So I highly recommend printing off the labels at home. And to start, you can just use your regular printer if you have one, print off the label and tape it to the box. As you start to do more volume, then you can upgrade to a label printer. But starting out, we just used a regular printer and it worked fine. As we started to have more sales, then we invested in a label printer and that was really nice, but definitely not necessary when you're just starting. So let's jump back into my computer and I will show you how to print off a shipping label. So from ebay.com, you're going to go over to the top right-hand corner where it says My eBay, and then you are going to select Selling, and that is going to take you to your Seller Hub. You can see under Tasks, there is one label that I need to print out, so I'm going to click on that. And you can see here is the Nintendo game that I need to ship out. So you can click on Purchase Shipping Label right here, and that will print off if you just have one label to print off. If you are trying to print off multiple labels, you can click on Actions right here, and then it will select all of the labels that you need to print off. But for today, I'm just going to click here on Purchase Shipping Label, and it will take me to this page where I need to enter my package info. So once I have the item packaged, I'm going to weigh it. It weighs 6 ounces. The dimensions of the package are 12 by 10 by 1. I press enter and then it calculates the shipping. In the bottom right hand corner, you can see that it's going to cost $4.55. So I click on Purchase Shipping Label, and then it will create the label. I choose where I want it to be printed to and press print. And then once it prints off, I just tape it to my box and you are ready to ship it out. And there you have it, 5 simple steps to start selling on eBay. I believe in you. You can totally do this. It's not as daunting as it seems at first. And I really hope that this video helped you feel a little bit empowered that you can do this and help clarify some things for you. Please consider subscribing for more eBay tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.